I've been a huge fan of the Wave Studio Rack ever since it came out, but now that you can use VST3 plugins from any third-party developer, it really opens up to a whole new thing. I love how you have the ability to use the parallel and the frequency split, and then you have the 8 different knobs, which you can assign to the plugins or assign to the volume of what is going to the plugins, and that's how I've been using it as of late. In fact, I've stopped using sends and returns altogether. I now only use Studio Rack. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how and why I do it. Let's go. Okay guys, so first of all, let's just talk about sends and returns. The sends and returns come from the old analog console days. You only had, a certain amount of ways to send out to an effects rack or, the outboard effects, reverbs, and delays. So you'd have to send it from the board out to the machine that you were sending it to, the reverb, and then the reverb would come back into the board either through an effects return or actual pair of faders. And that's how you would get your vocal to the reverb. And there was only so many boxes to use in the studio, so you only usually had 4 or 5. So fast forward to us all switching to using DAWs, and we just brought that model over, sends and returns. But why do we keep working this way when I feel it's a bit limiting? And so that's why I've switched over to using the Studio Rack for my sends and returns, and I'm gonna show you how I have it set up here. So this is one of my preset settings here, and all I do is I go to add parallel split, and then you can add or subtract as many different returns or sends as you want. And so the first thing you need to do is just put a regular track there with nothing through it. So that is your dry vocal, right? Then you can add, a reverb, another reverb, a delay, another reverb. So I have on this channel, I have 3 reverbs and 2 delays. And you can see, then you can label them and then add them to the send. So here is the first one. It's my ambient, and this is an ambient reverb. So I labeled it ambient. And now when I turn this micro, it turns the level to that reverb up and down. And I just did that for each single one. So these are my sends, and then these are the returns, right? So I'm still basically using it like a send and return way, just within a plugin. I like that because first of all, I can save this chain and go open it up in Studio One if I want. I can also have multiple chains that I can start from. Now, if I had to set all this up in each session, it would take quite a long time to create the send, put the reverb on the return, so on and so forth. That's a good 10 minutes. Sure, I can have a template that does all this, but why not have a ton of different starting spots? And not just that, I can have this whole reverb set up and just turn it on.
Last night I was out with the boys till 2, it's gone.
And I have instant, multiple reverbs and delays set up just the way I want them. Then if I don't like that reverb sound, I can go to one of my other ones that just has a total different vibe, load it up, dry with reverb, right? This is another setting I have. Parallel split. So this has a bunch of reverbs and delays stacked together, and then some basic reverb and delay after it.
Last night I was out with the boys till 2, it's gonna take a whole month to make it up to you.
And I can even put low cuts and high cuts so I can affect the reverb however I want to. So I can turn this down and...
Last night I was out with the boys till 2, it's gonna take a whole month to make it up to you.
And that's all set up right away. That's why I think this is such a great way to do things. Here's another point I'd like to make, and one of the reasons that I really actually switched to doing things this way. Let's say you have your lead vocal, you've gotten your reverb and your delays, and all those settings sounded really good. But then there's also some ad-libs, or in the chorus, there's some background vocals. And you only have the sends you already set up, so those reverbs are going to be the same, those delays are going to be the same. But maybe sometimes the ad-libs you want to go off, in a different direction or just sound different altogether. You'd have to set up a whole new set of reverbs and all that, and it was just like a disaster and such a pain. And half the time you're like, oh, I don't even want to do all that, so you don't even try, right? Well, with this, it's really easy. So take this Trip Carter vocal I have. I have my regular lead vocal starter plus on here.
Things get too hard for me and I can't be strong.
So that's cool. Maybe it's a little too reverby, so I'll turn this down, turn the chamber down.
Things get too hard for me and I can't be strong.
That feels better, right? Then I have these ad-libs though, right? After.
You tell me, come through, yeah. Just
So yeah, I could just copy and paste it, or if I had the old school send way, I would just have maybe the same sends and returns. I could turn one down or up.
you tell me, come through, yeah.
But maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to add like more delay to this one.
Me, you tell me, come through.
Which I could do with regular sends, but here's where it's different. I can actually go to this one and change the delay and add some distortion to it and some verb or whatever you want. Put a high pass filter on it, and then I can go to the plate, change that to an ambient, a space, a large space, right? And so now it's like a completely different effects thing.
Me, you tell me, come through. Just to renew.
And it gives that section a whole different vibe. And I did that within like 10 seconds just by copy and pasting my whole studio rack, switching some settings, and it still has some of the same reverb, so we're not straying too far away, but we've been able to take a few of the reverbs and change them completely to create a different vibe and bring more emotion to the song overall. All right, so that is my case for why I'm not using sends and returns anymore for vocal effects. They're still useful for side chaining and things like that, but for vocal effects and creative things, I just don't think it's the way to do things anymore. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you're interested in my Wave Studio Rack send and returns, you can get a bunch of them on my website, mixandmastermysong.com. You can also hit me up there if you want your song mixed or mastered. Talk to you soon.